Lakhbir. I work for the Citywide AMP team, and I'm now going to discuss with you an example of my day in the life of an AMP. I've just finished speaking to Children's Services regarding a Mental Health Act assessment I carried out on the previous day and updated some Care First recordings for the mother and children involved, and my mobile has rang. It's 12 p.m. My senior practitioner is referring a Mental Health Act assessment requested by the liaison and diversion team at a police station for a lady called Mrs. A, who is 33 years old and who took an overdose a couple of days ago. And while she was at the General Hospital, her child has disclosed that his mother has also given him and his sister some tablets. Both children are under the age of 11 years old. Police were notified and Mrs. A was arrested and brought to the police station. Mrs. A is not open to a mental health team, but a history from her GP is that after Mrs. A had given birth to her first child, she was diagnosed with postnatal depression and has been treated for depression in the past. A lot of my time is spent making telephone calls, waiting for people to get back to me and answering calls. I start by making calls in order to gather information about Mrs. A by ringing the diversion team, ringing her family, ringing her GP, ringing the home treatment team, only to be informed by the secretary that currently there are no nurses in the office to take my call and that they're all out on visits. So I leave a message with the secretary, who tells me someone will call me back when they get back into the office. An hour has passed waiting for home treatment team to call me back. During this time, I've spoken to the diversion team. I've established Mrs. A speaks English, otherwise I would need to consider booking an interpreter. I rang Mrs. A's GP. The reception staff have requested I need to send a fax before they can share any information with me and have taken all my details. I have read Care First recordings of the case, but no nurses have called me back yet, and I need to start setting this assessment up. I then ring back home treatment team, only to be told once again there are still no nurses in the office to take my call. I therefore leave another message. Eventually, at approximately 1:25, I receive a telephone call from a nurse who informed me that they are not aware of this case and do not know this lady, and will get back to me once they've checked out if Mrs. A's GP falls under their team. Half an hour later, the nurse has not called me back. It's now 2 p.m. I then make another telephone call to the nurse, who then clarifies that Mrs. A will belong to their team, but said he's unable to give me a meet-up time for the Mental Health Act assessment, as there are no doctors currently available in the office, as they are all out doing medical reviews, and he's not sure what time they'll be available, and therefore he will call me back with a time. After approximately just over an hour, it's now 3 p.m. The nurse has called me back with a time and stated they also need some travel time, approximately 50 to 55 minutes from where they are based to get to the police station. Now, I'm not able to agree on the time, as I now need to find a Section 12 doctor, an independent doctor, to attend for the assessment at the same time, as you need 2 doctors for the Mental Health Act assessment to take place. I then start phoning around for an appropriate Section 12 doctor, example for a female doctor who's going to be available for 4 p.m. I need to take into account that the Section 12 doctor will also need some travel time to get to the police station. I have now rang 5 to 6 doctors. They are declining as they will be finishing their clinics or in ward rounds and will not be available until around 4:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. and I'm more than happy to attend after 5 p.m. In this job, you are under considerable pressure coordinating everyone's availability, and the time is running by fast, while the mentally unwell person is waiting for us at the police station. After making several phone calls, I eventually manage to get hold of a doctor who agrees to attend for 4 p.m. I then make a phone call back to the nurse to agree on the meet-up time, but the nurse then informs me his shift is due to finish at 4 p.m. After some discussion, the nurse does agree to attend. And during the period whilst I was waiting for callbacks from the home treatment team nurse, my senior practitioner has rang me through another Mental Health Act assessment, where an application and conveyance is needed for a person at the same police station who was assessed during the night by the out-of-hours AMP and 2 doctors, but the AMP was unable to make an application due to no bed being identified at that time. So whilst I'm making calls, telephone calls for planning for the first assessment, I'm in between reading up on the case, speaking to the police, who informed me Mr B's pace time is due to run out within the next hour. So I quickly grab all my paperwork and bag with all my mental health paperwork and get myself to the police station. But as I'm trying to gather all my paperwork to get to the police station, the nurse and the doctor are both calling me on my mobile as they want directions to the police station, as they do not know where it is. After giving them the best directions I can give and giving them the postcode, I eventually arrive at the police station. This has now delayed me by another 10 minutes. I arrive and there is no car parking space left at the police station. So I park down the road, and when I buzz the buzzer, after 5 minutes still, there is no answer. Then as the police officer comes out, I eventually get through the first set of doors, but then continue to buzz and need to wait until somebody answers. Eventually I get in, but all the custody desks are busy with people, whether they've just been arrested or they're gathering their items to leave. Eventually I am attended to. I read up on the arrests of both clients, and once I've interviewed Mr B, who the police advised I could not see him in an interview room due to his aggressive and violent behaviour, and that I should see him in his cell with 2 police officers present, which I did. After interviewing Mr B, I am satisfied he meets the criteria for detention, and informed Mr B that he was being detained under Section 2 of the Mental Health Act, and informed him of his rights, and informed him which hospital and ward he would shortly be going to, and that he would be conveyed by the police and ambulance. I then complete all the necessary paperwork and need to book an ambulance for him to be conveyed. But my mobile phone is not getting a signal, as they're in the police custody suite, there's no reception. I then have to stand back in a queue waiting for an officer to be free at the desk so that I can ask to use their phone. Once I've booked an ambulance, I then phone the hospital ward, as I need to let them know approximately what time to expect Mr B. However, the ward phone line is constantly engaged, so I keep trying to ring for approximately 5 minutes, and eventually someone answers, but then states he cannot take the details from me as he is an unqualified worker and needs to get a qualified nurse to take my call. I eventually speak to the qualified nurse on the ward and give her a handover and details when to expect Mr B. Prior to the interview, I have tried ringing Mr B's father 3 times so that I could establish who is his nearest relative under the Act and ascertain their views, but father is not answering his phone, and I've looked through the records and cannot find any other telephone numbers for any other family member. I will continue to try later, as my mobile is not getting any reception in the police custody suite. I then make my way to the other assessment and meet the 2 doctors and the nurse from home treatment team, and we share what information we have about Mrs A before we see Mrs A. Then we're finally ready to conduct the Mental Health Act assessment. Mrs A is slow and inconsistent with her responses. She appears very distracted. Therefore, the assessing team are repeating each of the questions in order for Mrs A to respond. After a lengthy assessment, the decision is made that Mrs A meets the criteria for Section 2 and she should be admitted into a psychiatric hospital. When I informed Mrs A she's been placed under Section 2 of the Mental Health Act 1983 and explained what Section 2 is, she starts to pull out her hair and throwing it onto the floor. She starts screaming and shouting. We stop to give her reassurance. After Mrs A has calmed down, I then explain to Mrs A her rights to appeal against the Section 2. Prior to the Mental Health Act assessment, I had rang Mrs A's brother, but he did not answer. After the assessment, I tried ringing the family again, but still there is no answer. Therefore, I will keep trying later. For now, I need to book an ambulance to convey Mrs A to psychiatric hospital from the police station and complete all the necessary paperwork. I then ring the hospital ward to give them a handover and an estimated time to expect Mrs A, which was given to me by the ambulance, which is up to 4 hours wait. I then returned back to my laptop to update Care First, put on all my recordings and observations, complete the AMP report, email the AMP report to all the relevant parties, send any emails regarding both cases to any relevant parties involved to keep them all updated. Eventually, at approximately 7:30 p.m, I'm still ringing the family whilst I'm doing my recordings, and at last they do answer, and I can ascertain who is Mrs A's nearest relative, ascertain the nearest relative's views and update them on the outcome of the assessment and inform them of their rights as the nearest relative. Unfortunately, they do not have a pen on them and tell me they are outdoors and request that I call them back in an hour and then give them the details of the name and address of the hospital, ward, name and telephone number so they can write it down. I then ring family back an hour later to give all of the above details. It's now 8:30 p.m. This assessment is considered a straightforward assessment in the sense we were not carrying out this assessment in the community, we were not having to wait or chase up for any police or ambulance to attend, and I was extremely lucky as a bed was identified within half an hour of the assessing team making a decision to admit Mrs A.